Hey everybody, welcome back to Weapon Select, a series that exists, I think. I don't know, man. I never even finished the what am I doing series, and those videos made me money. Like, I don't finish things, but I wanted to talk about the new weapons, and this is the series where I do that. So, here we are. So, let's talk about the Douser Dualies first, because I don't know, they're the ones that I have in my hands right now. This is a really weird set of dualies that plays different, and that's going to be the same for the Brella as well. Like, these feel a lot different than the other main weapon. So, I mean, mission accomplished from the designers in terms of, like, creating something unique at the very least. So let's talk about how this thing fires first, because it's weird. This is a very different dualies than I'd say like the other main weapons are. The designers definitely made something that feels significantly different. One of those things is that the range on the standard fire is a lot different from the range on the dodge roll fire. I think this is a little bit deceptive in terms of the actual like efficacy of the weapon. Yeah, we're hitting fall off shots from there, so like you have to get a little bit closer before you're doing full damage. But you can see like that range is pretty good. And then the dodge roll shots, that's fall off, but I think that's because I was a little too far away. Let's try from here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So it's about 4 lines, roughly speaking, for dodge roll, and about 5 lines, 4.5 really, for the dual reticle fire here. Which is a lot. Like, let's just compare that to the Squeezer really quickly. Squeezer's kind of the gold standard here that you're going to compare a lot of different weapons to. So, slightly longer range, not super significantly, but slightly longer range on the dual reticle fire than the Squeezer's tap shots. So that's a lot of range. That is a kind of range that enables you to play fights a lot differently than the shorter range dualies have to. A shorter range dualie has a lot of difficulty getting at someone who's this far away. But with these weapons, you can kind of just poke at them and be like, you can't stand there. You have to do something to approach me. And so the fact that this dualies only has one dodge roll isn't actually as big of a deal as it is for some of the other dualies, because this mode of fire isn't necessarily a bad thing to be using. It's not going to do a ton of damage quickly. And I would still say that the Squeezer is significantly better than the dual reticle fire mode here, partly because it 3 shots and partly because it's not going to go back and forth. So the time to splat is way better on a Squeezer, and it still probably beats this weapon at that range. And so at the end of the day, are you really going to use this over the Squeezer? It's hard to find that many reasons to. The advantage that this weapon would have over the Squeezer is that it has better DPS when it gets up close with the dodge rolls here. But Squeezer could just throw a wall out there or something like that. You know, Squeezer doesn't really have to let it get there. So I still think that Squeezer's going to be preferred, especially, you know, even if the kit weren't a consideration here, the main weapon probably still beats it. But considering that it has that kind of range, that does open up a lot of possibilities for it. So getting back to the single dodge roll idea, basically, you poke them with the long range shots, and then if they try to rush you down, you wait until they're about to do damage, and then you dodge roll to make them miss that damage and try to, you know, finish them off from there. Hopefully you've done at least some damage on their way in, so you don't have to hit that many shots. It's a very fast, almost immediate splat off of the dodge roll. And something to note here is that the dodge roll, while you only get one of them, it is longer than other Dualies dodge rolls. So I'm just gonna, let's find a spot on the wall that we can roll out from, just to show the range here. So this is how far this goes. And then I'll switch to some other Dualies to give you an idea. So this is the standard splat Dualies, playing the N-Parry's kit, of course, but so that only goes that far. We'll pull out, let's see, I think I've got Glugas. Yeah, I've got Glugas over here. So those are a little longer, but still not as long. I actually don't remember if they're longer than Dualie Squelchers or not, because Dualie Squelchers have the slide. Nope, not even that. The slide gets you almost there, but not quite. And then, what am I missing? Tetras are definitely shorter. Yeah. So they are longer than all the others, and that is something to keep in mind, both, you know, because it can be an advantage, and also because if your back is to a ledge and you do this, you're over that ledge with these Dualies. That is something you got to be a little bit careful about. You know, that hole on Marlin Airport's been catching people off a little bit. So be careful about that. So it's been interesting that, like, the main weapon I think has potential for sure. Again, like, it is still a hard sell that you want this over Squeezer under generally any circumstances as a main weapon, but comparing it to Squeezer is kind of unfair. Like, were this thing to get a better kit than the Squeezer has, I think there's absolutely an argument. Because it is a very strong main weapon in comparison to, like, a lot of other things. Problem is the kit. And that's why I think that this will still be kind of relegated to, like, mid-tier, upper mid-tier kind of area. That's my prediction for right now. The issue is just that you don't get that much off Whale, and you don't get very much at all off Ink Mine. The Ink Mines are just not going to hit your opponent a lot of the time, because you're going to put this out there, and then you're going to keep them so far away from you that they never reach that Ink Mine. You put this in places to maybe, like, defend other members of your team. Like, if you've got, like, a backline weapon that you don't want getting flanked, maybe you put this to protect them. Maybe you put it on the zone. But generally, in my experience, those mines are getting shot more often than they're actually activating and doing damage to someone. I'm just so rarely incentivized to even put them down in the first place. It's not like I'm an E-leader and I can, you know, put these down and that'll actually help me retreat from someone and maybe do a little bit of extra damage. Like, I am hitting them from so far away that if they're hitting me back at longer range, they are a backline weapon. Like, I'm fighting something like a heavy splatling or maybe the charge slash of a stamper, but even that I'm not super scared of, because I can do damage back and have more mobility and a faster shot velocity than that. Yeah, you've got more range with this, but with the shot velocity, it's not super scary. You can usually roll around this. So it's got an advantage of about a full line, I would say. Roughly speaking. That's definitely an advantage, but it's not that bad. You can probably just, like, close distance and be walking back and forth a little bit like this, and be able to contest them okay. Because those shots, like, as long as you've got paint at your feet, those shots that they're firing are dodgeable at that range. So, definitely a playable matchup, I think, between those two weapons. And so, as long as you're able to, keep your distance, you can outrange a Nautilus. You can kind of contest the Stamper, like we were just saying. You're talking about something like a Squeezer or a backline weapon that's able to actually outrange you with those shots. But you're also able to go in a little bit. You're able to play Slayer a little bit. You don't want to start there. You always want to start by, getting these long distance shots and poking someone out of position. But when you do actually want to go in and get a splat and slay, you can, dodge roll in, just positioning yourself to get those shots, get that faster DPS, and finish the splat. So it's kind of like a hybrid, like Skirmisher Slayer, in that it's keeping someone away, it's, engaging someone from a safe distance with this mode, and then when it does get the opportunity, it can go in. It's just not going to have that much multi-kill potential, unless the opponents are kind of either going in one at a time, or they're not paying too much attention to when you take out one of their teammates. Like, if they double team you off of one of these dodge rolls, they should be able to get the splat in between. Because, you can't even... It's possible to splat someone so fast that you can't actually dodge roll out immediately after you've done that lethal damage. The cooldown timer on just the single dodge roll is pretty slow. I'm mashing the button right here. And you can see that's way more shots than you actually need to splat someone that are being fired in between. So it might even, if you're in a situation where you need to splat multiple players at a time, it may even be a situation where you need to, move your aim in turret mode while you're, after you get the splat from one player to the other player before you can get that dodge roll off. You can kind of see what I'm trying to do there. That might actually be what players on these weapons end up having to do to try and accommodate for getting multiple players. Usually it's more like you want to be, poking them into a position where you can go for them with the long-range shots, and then you dive in with the dodge roll to get the splat afterward. So I think this weapon is probably going to work better in solo queue because it feels about isolating one individual player and getting them into a spot where you can go in. And in a coordinated team setting, that's going to be harder to do because they're going to, call their teammates over to it. The whale is a way that maybe you can cause a little bit of chaos, create an opportunity to go in and get a splat. Maybe you dealt a little bit of damage to someone with the long-range shots, and you're hoping that you can get the remaining damage that you need from the whale, something like that. But the whale and the mine are both relatively minor parts of the kit. I think a lot of the time you're kind of just playing this for the main weapon. One thing to note about this weapon is that these shots are very close to taking more than a 4-shot. If you're getting fall off at all, it can definitely increase the number of shots that you need to splat. So you've got to be super careful about elevation change and making sure that if you really need that splat, that you are getting it from level ground, or you're anticipating just needing more shots than that. I don't know why I locked in that much closer to the spawn there. Got me out a little slower. But we should be able to take kind of this position here and make it really difficult for them to occupy that spot. You can see my teammate was able to move in because of that. And we just moved forward a little bit more, and my teammate rushed that a little bit faster than I was able to help them. I probably should have moved a little bit faster, because I think I could have got him there, but it's okay. We should be able to keep him safe here. Let's pop this, and maybe my teammate could go in on that. Yeah, losing in the other side. Let's back up a little bit. Yeah, they get close to me and they win, but they don't have to get close to me, because I have longer range. This is not where I want to be relative to that player. It's a little bit of a splatter shot move trying to go up that wall. That's not where I really wanted to be. I'm worried that there's someone underneath here. There isn't. Okay. The dually shots can be nice for like hitting in different places on the tower. If you're not hitting them with one reticle, then you might be hitting them with another. Oh, I don't like how quickly we're going down here. There. See, that's super duper safe. Like, I'm so far back there that nobody on their team except the heavy can even hit me. So this makes it really difficult for them to stay on tower if I'm in range of it. Just gonna pop that. And we get this. Because we did enough damage with the whale beforehand, so we only needed a few shots. Oh boy. I hope I didn't draw all the attention over to my teammate there. Good. And a lot of the time, I'm not even necessarily trying to splat them. I'm just basically sending the message, you cannot stay here. This is our spot. Because it's slow damage. It's damage that's, like, unlikely to confirm into a splat unless they stay still for a while or they're already hit. Like they were there. Like there. You know, my aim was on for a lot of those shots, except that because it was going back and forth between reticles, not actually going to splat them. So, like, that sort of deal, I should probably be dodge rolling instead if I really need the damage to finish that off, if I'm going to challenge a Nautilus at that range. So, still some stuff to get used to, of course. There, that was good. That there, hit them a couple times. This right here. Use this just because we can't see them over there, but that's a way that we can contest the place that they're going into. It is kind of nice to have a special that's global range and hits from like a variety of angles like that, like through walls and stuff, because you don't have a lethal bomb or anything you can throw to get someone out of that spot. You don't really have any source of AoE. So if they're using cover against you, that's one of the only things that you can do about it, is launch a whale at them. Okay, they can't stay there because I outranged them. That's also not a push that they can make. I don't know why we're not contesting the tower here very much. Anyone else had been shooting at them, they would have been down by now. Why are we fighting over here? That's not where the tower's at. Oh dear. We probably lose there. Yeah, definitely. Oh no, wait, we got him off the tower. We need to send this back real quick. Ah. Please notice the player on the tower. Oh my goodness. That was very avoidable. I think we just got way too caught up in fights up in front that did not matter and ignored the tower. So for a long time, the tower was kind of frontlining there. There was nobody protecting it. And see, it's a little bit awkward sometimes to, like, confirm a splat with the long-range mode. And that's somewhere that, like, a squeezer would probably have just, you know, won the fight and splatted the guy off the tower right away. That's one of the reasons I'd probably favor that. But you can see, like, it's got a lot of things that it does well. And it's definitely something you can play around. Just, I think there's other weapons in the niche of, like, having that kind of range and that kind of kill power that you just slightly beat it for what it's trying to do. Especially given, you know, the lack of a bomb, the not super desirable special, and the definitely not desirable at all sub-weapon. So, very interesting weapon, and one which, you know, if it gets a second kit, could definitely be very strong. Just, it really needs a little bit more from its kit, I think, to see real, like, top-level competitive use. Let's move on to the new Brella. I've been playing a lot of this today, and not very well, because I'm not a Brella player. But I've been trying to, get some games in on it and compare it to its primary competitor in this role, which is the Sorella Brella. Now, that's not to say that those two weapons are, like, super duper similar. There are some major differences, and the biggest one I would say by far is something that's hard to show here, but it's how flimsy the Brella shield is. I guess the best I can do is try to fire it into this. This Brella shield only has like 100 HP. It's really not a lot. You can see there was like 4 or 5 shots, I think, out of that got rid of it. There are some multipliers that change how much damage each weapon effectively does. So even if I have it right that it's 100 HP, that doesn't exactly tell you everything that you need to know about which weapons are going to do what against it. You kind of just want to figure out how long it takes. But this thing is made of paper, is the overall takeaway. Like, as a Splattershot player, I can just keep holding down the ZR button on that thing, and they need to hit every shot they have to be able to splat me before I just shred through the shield and splat them. It's a very demanding weapon in the sense that you really don't have a very big window to get something done before you're just in danger. The thing about Brellas is that, they're a little bit less mobile, they're a little bit more stationary. That shot takes a really long time, and yes, it makes a nice path to paint, a path in the paint for you to swim through, but because it takes so long on startup, it's, that's an amount of time you can be splatted during by a lot of weapons. So it relies pretty heavily on the shield to be able to keep it safe, but this is a shield that's not going to keep you safe for very long. And one of the things you have to adapt to is the shield launch is probably going to be something that you have to use somewhat often. If you don't have a way to, like, retreat behind cover or something, if you can't, like, get away from an engagement and you're kind of stuck in it, you're going to end up launching that shield at some point, and you kind of just need to go with it like a Tentabrella sometimes. Sometimes that's the best way to buy yourself some time. One nice thing about this is that if you look from this perspective, you can't see me very well as I'm swimming behind this. So there's a moment of ambiguity for your opponent about, like, where you're going. Like, are you going with the shield, or are you staying back away from the shield? They have to figure that out before they can go after you, and that, plus the amount of time it takes to shred the shield, does often buy you a little bit of time to maybe engage in the 1v1 and try and get them. When you engage in the 1v1, one of the things you want to seriously consider doing is actually leading with the angle shooter. This is for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I think the most important one, is the amount of time it takes. What I'm doing right now is mashing the fire button, the ZR button. I'm buffering that second input. That's coming out about as fast as it possibly can. There's not much more I can do to speed that up. Now compare that to what the angle shooter can do. You see how much faster that is? The angle shooter has a lot less end lag than the Brella shot does. So even if I try to switch it up and go Brella shot into angle shooter, you'll see it's not that fast. Like, I am pressing the R button significantly faster than it's actually coming out there. That's because it can buffer. Like, I'm pressing it way sooner. That is as fast as it comes out. But if you lead with the angle shooter instead, the angle shooter recovery time at the end is just so much faster that you get out your Brella shot way faster than you would get it after another Brella shot. So this is your fastest TTK right here by a lot, is the angle shooter into the Brella shot and not the other way around. That's why I recommend going for the angle shooter shot first in a lot of cases. Now, there are some cases where that might not be as desirable, because you can see that only does 40 damage. If they're already damaged a little bit, then obviously you just want to hope for the 90 and finish the splat immediately instead of needing the angle shooter. You also might be in a situation where you could go for the Brella bump, and so then this combo is available to you. I think that's slightly faster than going for the angle shooter combo, so I guess that's not technically your fastest time to kill. But that's also not a super realistic way to get a splat most of the time. This is more of a... the opponent doesn't even know that you're there, and you're just going for a really quick ambush on them. And apparently, I don't know why it didn't work there. I don't know why it only did 5 damage. Oh, it was because I hit a 75 into the bump. That's what happened. Because the bump does 20. Okay, that makes sense. You do need the 90 if you hit, like... because, see, the bump only does 20. So if you hit, like, a 75... it's possible to hit a 75. I just don't know. There it is. There's the 75. So if you hit that and then you get the bump, that doesn't splat. So that's what happened there. But... that's your general thought process, is you're trying to use the higher damage of this Brella to get splats. Because what else can you actually do, realistically speaking? You're not going to buy a ton of time by, like, getting into the pocket, like, behind the enemy team, or, like, in a way that they're having to pour a ton of damage into you to get through. You're buying maybe a tiny bit of time, but it's only enough time usually, unless you have a teammate who's already with you and fighting. You're not going to buy enough time for that opponent, or for that teammate, to be able to get the pick off of how much you're able to stall. The most you're probably going to be able to stall is by doing this much, and then by the time that shield is done, you need to have gotten a splat, or you're probably overcommitted and you're going down. So, it's more of a Slayer Brella, which isn't a super comfortable niche for it to fill. It's not what you want to be doing with a Brella, given how immobile Brellas are, and how the multi-kill potential really isn't there. Like, that took my entire ink tank to do those two combos. I can't even fire another shot after I'm done with those two. So that is, the absolute most that you're going to get in that kind of a situation, and that leaves you completely defenseless. If you get those two, and then there's a third player, there is actually nothing you can do unless you can, like, pop a special and get your ink back that way. So, like, I guess maybe if you go in while you have Big Bubbler, then you can pop that, get the splat, and be ready for the other guy because you got all of your ink tank back, and maybe that's how you play it. But there are a lot of things that have to go right for that sort of thing to develop. You're not going to waste as much of the enemy team's time because it takes less resources to shred through your shield. So I find myself in a position of tentatively agreeing with Chara's initial prediction that he thinks that the Sorella Brella is still going to be the better Brella for this kind of range, this kind of niche, than this one. The Sorella Brella, I played a bit of that today, and I'm bad at both of them. To be clear, like, it's not a matter of me being less familiar with the Rebrella than with the Sorella Brella, because I don't play the Sorella Brella either. So this was very much a learning experience on both weapons, and I think that while the damage is super nice on the Rebrella, and that's definitely its selling point, like, having this combo is great, where you can actually reliably splat someone instead of needing to wait for a better weapon to show up to help you. Like, while that's super nice, you just have way fewer opportunities to get yourself into a good position because your shield goes down so quickly, gets shredded so quickly, that you only buy yourself a very short amount of time to do anything, and you really need to make that moment count in a way that, like, I don't know, you just have a better window with the Sorella Brella to do anything. You have more of a possibility of being able to disengage because your Brella shield stays up for so much longer. And you also have something to play for outside of the main weapon in having a special that's a lot more valuable. I don't think that the Big Bubbler gives you anywhere near the kind of continuation ability to like get a pick and keep going, or maintain yourself in a fight, reduce downtime basically, as the Inkjet does. There were definitely some situations that I was able to get myself out of on the Sorella Brella by getting myself behind a wall and then just popping my Inkjet. And, they devoted a lot of resources to going in and getting rid of my shield, but at that point it didn't matter because now they had a whole new Inkjet to deal with. And from there, they were often overcommitted and had to back up. With this, you put the big bubbler down, and a lot of the time you just get splatted before it is able to do anything. But then if it does go up, a lot of the time the opponent can just kind of back away, and you kind of have to let them because you are a Brella and you don't really chase things super duper well. One thing that this Brella does have going for it, besides just the damage, and the consistency of that damage, because it is worth noting, like, that's 90, and that's a pretty consistent 90, because the pellets don't spread out as much. Like, you're much less likely to get damage that doesn't two-shot on this Brella. It's way less common that happens. But one other thing that it does have besides that is that the shield is fast enough that you can kind of use it like a discount curling bomb. If this launches, sometimes you can just ride with it and get away in ways that you weren't as reliably going to be able to do on a Splat Brella. So that little mobility buff that you get from it can be something that can get you out of a bad situation in ways that you wouldn't have on the other Brellas. And because it paints so well for you as it goes, and because it blocks enemy vision, it can maybe be a way that helps you escape and land that extra shot that you need. So, like I said, I think I still probably see more potential in the Sorella Brella, mostly because of its special. But I think you give a better kit to this thing, and there's an argument that maybe you use this for its better slaying potential. And it's a slightly better ability to move. One other thing that I think is holding this weapon back is that if you had another sub-weapon, you'd be a much greater threat for attacking someone who's past cover. Again, like, you've only really got the option to try and hit these fall-off shots, and that's not totally impossible, but it's not the same as being able to, like, throw a burst bomb up over the top. That would be beautiful. Or even just any other lethal bomb. So I think because of that weakness against, like, AoE weapons, which is only compounded by the fact that, like, a slosher hits up over the top of this Brella shield, so it hits both the Brella shield and you a lot of the time. It just makes it really weak against some options that are very strong in the meta right now. And I think another bomb, it wouldn't completely make up for that, but it would help with that. Now, mind you, if you give it a new kit, it's really going to want a sub-weapon that still combos with it like this. If it doesn't get that, that significantly diminishes the splat power. It's basically worse at that point than a Splat Brella, because even though it does more damage and it's more reliably going to get the two-shot, the two-shot happens faster on the other Brella. Okay. Just got a range blast. They've got an E-liter, a lot of dualies. Traditionally, Brellas have a good matchup against dualies. Oh, and we've got another Brella on our side. So we should have the 1v1 advantage there, except with this particular Brella, you can't just stay in the fight the way that other Brellas can while the dualies roll. So it's not as strong of a matchup as it is for others, but you can see there, is able to take another of their shots that we won, even though we had the E-liter looking at us at the same time. E-liter probably should have hit that shot, but that'll keep our teammates safe. Somebody's on the tower, right? Oh, nobody's on the tower. Cool, I should have stayed. Bottom left. Okay. It's not died at a wave breaker. I was a little confused there for a second because we had a wave breaker out ourselves. We basically only lost lead there because we didn't get very many points in the first place. Oh, I'm out of ink. Fortunately, they didn't realize that, but unfortunately, I didn't get my shield up in time. Oh, shoot. There's someone behind us here. I don't need to worry about that right away. I need to worry about what's in front right away. But I am now last player up. Keeping the elite are watching something else, but we're losing points in the meantime. One of the nice things there is I hit both the angle shooter and the Brella shield, so even if I hadn't gotten full damage from the shot, it would have been enough to splat. Back away here so we don't go down to that, because that has a lot of range. I thought they'd come up from there. Okay, well, I put them inside the bubble, so that wasn't exactly the smartest thing. I thought they would have rolled by then. Oh boy. Oh, okay. I guess that works. Nice, okay. Wow, we got through the checkpoint. Crazy. I'm gonna go across here. So we need that player out of there. This guy can stay. They're not as much of a threat as the E-Leader was. Okay. I'd probably rather be higher, but nice. And that's game. Whew. Took a bit of work, but once we got through those checkpoints, we started snowballing. That's probably my best game that I've ever played on that weapon. I don't think I've ever had a KA that looked that good. So here's what that ended up looking like. Oh, I don't know when their DC happened. I didn't notice that. I'll have to look back through it, but I think generally that's still a pretty good example. Obviously, you know, I was having some trouble figuring out what to do with my big bubblers, and that's something that I'm still working out on this weapon, because one of my initial thoughts was that maybe you would use the Brella shield to work your way in and then pop a bubble down, but because the Brella shield has to go in between you and the opponent, what you're basically doing is making it easier for the opponent to run inside your own big bubbler when you put it down, because the space that you've gained for that is space between you and them, and you're closing the distance. So that was one of the thoughts that I had about how, you know, maybe you could use this to put a big bubbler further forward than you normally could. In practice, it feels like that's not really the way that it's playing, but I haven't seen too much of this tried in like high-level play. So maybe there's something there that I'm missing about how this gets used. But hopefully that was at least somewhat helpful. And let me know if you've got other tips for it as like a Brella main or something like that, because I'm always happy to learn more myself.